Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to another daily devotion. I'm Pastor Roy here at Woodlawn Christian Church in Lake City, Iowa, and we do these devotions Monday through Friday for most weeks anyway. There's every once in a while I'm gone for some reason or another. But today, this devotion I'm recording for Monday, August 8th of 2022. So if you're watching it sometime in the future, we welcome you here, and we're glad you stopped by. If you like these devotions, please like and subscribe. We'd love to have you here with us more often. And there is a great long playlist of the different devotions, the different books we've already gone through. But we are currently working our way through Matthew's Gospel, the first book in the New Testament. We went back to it. We've previously done Luke's Gospel. And so here today we have gotten to chapter 24. We're going to look at just verses 32 to 35, just a short little section today. We are in the middle of this Mount Olivet discourse that Jesus is going through. And it is one of these things in Scripture that causes a lot of debate and contention, and there's a lot of dialogue that goes back and forth over this section of Scripture, especially here in Matthew. So let's take a look at this, and this is titled "The Lesson of the Fig Tree." All right, 32 to 35 in the 24th chapter of Matthew. From the fig tree learn its lesson. As soon as its branch becomes tender and puts forth its leaves, you know that summer is near. So also when you see all these things, you know that he is near at the very gates. Truly I tell you, this generation will not pass away until all these things have taken place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. Okay, this is one of those texts that is used to shoot down the second coming or even Christianity in total, because they say, aha, this generation will not pass away. Guess what? And Jesus hasn't come again yet, and all of those folks are long dead. The generation, depending on where you're looking at it in Scripture, can be 40 years, can be 70 years even. But it's been considerably longer than 70 years, just in case you didn't realize that. And I know you did. But the issue there is there's a couple of different things. One of the theories on this is, of course, that this whole discourse is not talking about the second coming. It's talking about the destruction of the temple, which happened in 70 AD, before a generation had passed. And that's very possible. And actually, that idea is actually supported, though I tend to think it's that Jesus, as often in Scripture, this is actually talking about. We've got two things going on. We've got the destruction of the temple, but we also have reference to the second coming. Some of it is overlapping, excuse me, an itchy eye. But part of this here that would seem to be proving that it's talking about the temple, simply the temple, is actually, ironically, verse 35. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. Well, what do you mean, heaven and earth pass away? Well, heaven and earth was a common thing for the temple to be called. Even Josephus, this Jewish historian, calls the temple basically heaven and earth. In the first century, the inner court, the Holy of Holies, that represented heaven. The outer courts represented earth. So the temple was referenced as heaven and earth. And the temple's destroyed. It was destroyed before the generation had passed away, because it was 70 AD. A lot of the folks that Jesus was talking to were still around to see that destruction of the temple, and all of the folks being driven out, which applies to all of this other stuff about going on. Now the trumpets could be as the soldiers are coming in. It's not necessarily the angels the angels will send out a loud trumpet call, but the trumpets are playing because the soldiers are coming in. That would be an argument there, perhaps. Again, I think that there's overlapping. My personal opinion, but I do see that there is an in here for this to be talking, at least this section, 32 to 35, talking about the destruction of the temple. Now, in a minute, he's going to flip, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. I think it flips, but again, could still be to all the temple. The other point that is a to bring up here is the word that is translated as generation can mean tribe or race also. I tell you, this tribe, this race, the Jewish race, will not pass away until all these things have taken place. The second coming, the Jewish race will still be around. They're still with us, folks. I don't see, even with yesterday than today, the rockets being fired into Israel. I saw early this morning there had been 600 rockets fired at Israel by the Islamic terrorists, the Palestinians. Nonetheless, Israel's still here. The Jewish people are still here. The race is still here. So that would, if that word should be translated as race instead of generation, then the text is not wrong either, because the Jewish people are still here. So there's two different ways that this can be looked at to say that it's not falling short. It's not tripping up. If we just read it and we take it in English, then yeah, we got a problem. But we need to understand it, which is the way it is with all Scripture. We need to understand a little bit of the background of what's going on here, and a little bit about the language of Greek. Though I do not speak Greek, I do not, not studied it formally. All my knowledge of Greek is stuff that I've done on my own. So I'm not a Greek scholar. If I have questions about Greek, I call my son, because my son is very talented at Greek. He was a theology major and did very, very good. He's very, very gifted with languages. He knows Greek and he knows Latin, and he's actually learning Mandarin. So, because he has a girlfriend that's Chinese. So, at any rate, if I have a question on Greek, I call my son. I say, Greek, here's this word, and I'm trying to work my way through it. This is what I'm learning from the Greek interlinear. Tell me more, and he can help me flush through some things or figure some things out. But at any rate, long story short, generation can mean tribe, can mean race. And if you're going to look at the Jewish tribe, Jewish race, still with us. They haven't passed away. If we're looking at this as being the second coming, if we're looking at it as being the destruction of the temple, the heaven and earth will pass away, meaning the temple, and it did. It's gone. It's not back yet. The construction of a third temple, unless they figure out that the temple actually sat in a somewhat different location where the majority of scholars, there is a minority of scholars that think it was off in a different area. If it was off in a different area, it's possibly could rebuild it, possibly. Still would have to tear down some buildings, but you don't have to tear down the Temple of the Rock. That's a much bigger fish to fry. If you have to tear down the Temple of the Rock in order to construct the Jewish temple, the third temple, that's World War III. So, at any rate, it's an interesting passage, few interesting things there. I hope I've brought a couple things to the table that maybe you didn't know before. It's continues to be an interesting passage, continues to be an interesting chapter. So with that, I'm going to let you go for today. We will pick up at verse 36. I almost concluded 36 today, but I decided, we'll leave that for tomorrow. The necessity for watchfulness is where we're going to pick up for Tuesday. All right. Have a blessed day, and please, 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 please be a blessing to someone today. We'll see you all later. God bless, and bye-bye.